Hi, Chris Johnson here, CEO of the Urban Taskforce. This is our latest publication. It's about affordable apartments. We're trying to test whether we're living a bit beyond our means. Are we having our houses and our apartments at bigger sizes and bigger standards than we really need? And that's becoming an affordability problem. So if we look into the document itself, on the first page, we've got a whole chart that looks at the average residential floor space per person. This is based on a study done by a group called Shrink That Footprint. Interesting name, but it was using data from ComSec, Reserve Bank of Australia, the UN, US Census to measure the average residential floor space per person. What it shows on this chart, as you can see, Australia is number one with 96 square metres a person, followed by the US at 83, Canada, Denmark, Germany, Sweden, Japan, Spain, UK at amazingly way down at 35 square metres per person. So we are living above our means, I would say, if we got the biggest in the world. Also in this page, we look at some research by two Melbourne researchers, Andrew Stephen and Robert Crawford, University of Melbourne, and what they've said is that the average Australian house in 1950 had 30 square metres per person, and in 2017 this had grown to 87 square metres per person, 3 times what used to be the case per person. So moving over, we then look at a big global trend towards micro apartments. These are smaller apartments in very urban location. New York's the one that's led in this regard. You can see here a survey that looks at micro unit renters' priorities in the initial lease decision. This is American data, but it looks at just what are the key deciders. The top one is location. 97% of respondents said this is the number one, and the number two is price. So location and price are the 1 and 2 issues that are determining a lot of younger people's issues about where they locate. In New York, Mayor Bloomberg ran a competition to allow units to be below the 40 square metre minimum size currently given. And here's a plan of a typical unit. It's in feet rather than in metres, but you can see it's 30 feet long, 10 feet wide. That's 300 feet, which is 30 square metres. And it's got a living room, it's got a kitchen, it's got a bathroom. The living room becomes the bedroom, but the spaces are quite reasonable. So there's a big shift to smaller places to live. This has continued through into Sydney. We've got here the new generation boarding houses. New gen boarding houses are part of the New South Wales government's approach to how you could get people living in smaller places. This is an image of the building in the street in Annandale, designed by Tone Wheeler, architect of Environa Studio. And here are 2 images of a typical bed set. They're bed sets which have got their own kitchen and their own bathroom, living area and sleeping area all together. You can see one with a mezzanine level. You can also see, which we put on the cover, a shared common space. So there's a beautiful common space that all the people in these smaller units can go to for garden and outdoor areas, barbecues that you can share. The normal requirement is that these units have to get sunshine for certain hours. That doesn't have to occur as long as the garden at the top gets that sunshine. That way you still get the amenity. But we then looked at 10 ways to reduce New South Wales apartment costs. You can see here a list of 10. It goes through a whole series of items. I'll just go through the key ones. Separation and building depth. You can see here 24 metres between buildings. This is what is required between affordable, well, not just affordable, just residential buildings generally. Residential buildings must have 24 metres, but in New South Wales you also have to have that to a commercial building. This is making it very difficult to make feasible residential buildings in broader cities. The other diagrams on the right-hand side start looking at the depth. In New South Wales you have to have 18 metres. Victoria, you can easily have 22 metres, and this means that you can get a lot more units per floor, 12 instead of 10, and you get a much better layout. Over the page we look at solar access and natural ventilation. The solar access is a situation where in New South Wales you have to put all the small units, the blue ones in this map, on the north. Victoria, not the case. You can get your big 2-bedroom units or 3-bedroom units facing the sun better because they're more likely to be family units, and you get a better solution. Natural ventilation is a big requirement in New South Wales, more so than in Victoria. That means cross units from one side to the other, which becomes quite expensive. Ceiling height is yet another issue we've started looking at. You can see on this diagram that the Victorian diagram shows the ceiling height a minimum of 2.7 metres, but clearly shows the kitchen as having a lower ceiling height because of the services that are required for the kitchen above. New South Wales, you can't do that. That makes it very difficult. Over the page, we got the apartment size. Apartment sizes is quite a big issue. This is where the biggest cost is of all. New South Wales, you can see here a typical 2-bedroom unit is 75 square metres for 2 bedrooms and 2 kitchens. 2 bathrooms, not kitchens, 2 bathrooms. In Victoria, you can do 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms within 65 square metres. That difference of 10 square metres is worth $100,000. If you add the other items up, it comes to $150,000 extra for a Sydney apartment. If you used the Melbourne rules, we would be able to save that on the Sydney apartment. Quite dramatic. We then go on to say that we need special areas for affordable units in cities, special areas for urban cores where getting the solar access a lot harder. This has been really useful research. It was supported by Meriton and C-Rose, who are very good members of the Urban Taskforce. We need to challenge these issues of whether we're living beyond our means if we want affordability to be a crucial issue in the Sydney apartment market.